Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tawana Rivers. I am the CEO of the 10K Project. And tonight you are here for another Bet on Black pitch with another amazing Black founder who we're here to support. I want to introduce you to Pierre Laveau. He is the founder of Seed at the Table. I'm super excited to talk to Pierre again. Pierre came to the 10K Project just to talk about Seed when they launched. But Seed is an equity crowdfunding portal. Seed is actually, I believe, Pierre, correct me if I'm wrong, you are the only Black-owned one that allows for non-accredited investors. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, we're intentionally focused on diverse founders. That is correct. The only one so far.
Yeah, and the only Black-owned.
Exactly correct. That is correct. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. So that's a big deal, right? So that's a very, very big deal. And we are here to celebrate Pierre and his team tonight. I am going to go to the campaign page. The campaign's on WeFunder. So let me share my screen. And you guys are familiar with WeFunder, but we'll go just over high-level deal terms. So we are in, I get excited when we're in the family and friends round, right? Because so many of our founders don't make it out of this round because they don't have the support. And so I'm super excited when we get the opportunity to serve as the rich aunties and uncles who help a founder get out of this phase into the main phase of capital raising. And so this campaign is going to launch publicly on April the 17th. So there's 26 days. The minimum investment is $250. This is a future equity investment opportunity. There's a $10 million cap on this opportunity. There's a lot of information throughout the campaign page to highlight the deal itself and to really talk to you about what Seed is doing. And so you guys know how I feel about the importance of reading through the entire campaign page, right? The founders spend so much time making sure all of the information that they know you need is located in the campaign page. And so please take the time to look through that. A lot of the information that you're going to need to do your due diligence is in this campaign page. So you want to make sure you look there, okay? This particular campaign is in testing the waters phase. Pierre, is that accurate?
That is correct.
So what Pierre and his team are doing, you guys know we talk about testing the waters often. They are literally testing the water. So when the bathtub water is, you think it's hot and you just stick your toe in it a little bit to kind of feel it all out. That's what this is, right? And so really looking to make sure there is interest in the campaign before filing the Form C. And you guys know we've talked about the investment into filing the Form C and getting all of the audited financials. The founders spend a lot of money to raise money. And so they definitely want to be confident that there is interest in what they're doing. And so with that, I will go ahead and stop sharing. And Pierre, I will turn it over to you, sir. Take as long as you need to present, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Perfect. No, thank you for setting this up. Greetings. Good evening to everybody out there. Pierre Laveau, one of the co-founders of Seed at the Table. I'm just pulling up my file right now, so bear with me for 2 seconds.
Take your time.
Share screen. Perfect. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So once again, greetings. My name is Pierre Laveau. I'm one of the co-founders of Seed at the Table. I'm actually based in Los Angeles, where Seed was actually created, or at least officially, as it pertains to filing and corporation documents and so forth. By way of background, besides being from Los Angeles, I was an investment banker at Goldman Sachs in New York City for 11 years. I'm surrounded by an incredible team that we'll get into later. And we'd love to just, move forward and tell you about what Seed at the Table is, what we stand for, and how we hope to partner with investors like all of you, whether as it pertains to investing directly in Seed and or supporting some of the companies that we launch. The quickest and easiest description of Seed at the Table is that we're an equity crowdfunding portal. Many of you may be familiar with Republic or WeFunder, Start Engine, and so forth. Those are some of our more notable competitors. Our differentiating factor is that we focus on diverse founders. are marginalized founders, people that typically do not have access to a seat at the table as it pertains to seed capital. At Seed, as I mentioned, one of the co-founders, and I also serve in the head of growth capacity. When I was an investment banker at Goldman, I quickly realized that there are so many amazing companies that are out there that don't necessarily have access to an investment bank like Goldman or can't engage an investment bank like Goldman, but they're generating revenue, they're creating product that we consume, they're in a position to employ people, and they're changing lives. So the goal with Seed at the Table is to really bridge the gap to capital. When President Obama signed the Jobs Act about 10 years ago, it allowed for non-accredited investors. Those are individuals that make less than $200,000 a year and or have less than $1 million of net worth. It allowed for those individuals to be able to be investors in small businesses and growing and scaling businesses. It's not just small businesses. The beauty of it is that it allows those individuals to invest at smaller dollar amounts, which many of you may be familiar with. When I think it was 3 years ago when we thought about creating Seed, we quickly realized that there wasn't an equity crowdfunding portal that focused on diverse founders. The reality is for Black founders, they have 12% of the median net worth of white founders. They're 3 times more likely to be denied a loan from a bank. If they do get a loan from a bank, it's typically at a smaller dollar amount and at a higher interest rate. In addition to that, I'm sure you all know the startling numbers in terms of venture capital access, being that, I think it's only 2%, last year it was 2% of all VC access was allocated to Black and brown founders. Now we're down to 1%. So there is a gap as it pertains to helping businesses get access to venture. So when we think about Seed at the Table, we said, hey, we want to be the partner that expands that definition of friends and family. We've had some tremendous success, and I'll just kind of go through this executive summary real quick, just to give you a quick understanding of it. So for perspective, as I mentioned, we focus on diverse founders, but in addition to that, we also offer this concept of family. So what family means that these are individuals who are past bankers, attorneys, consultants, people that worked in CPG for 20, 15 years, and they serve as advisors to the companies that we help list. So far, we've had at least 300 companies that have come through Seed at the Table. They haven't necessarily listed through Seed, but they are part of our ecosystem, meaning that they've come looking for help and guidance and mentoring and advisory services as I described. So for example, we quickly realized over the last 3 years that not every company is a fit for equity crowdfunding and issuing stock or issuing safe notes or issuing debt as it pertains to FINRA and the SEC. So they may be a better fit for donation-based crowdfunding. So think about Fund Black Founders or think about Kickstarter, or they may be better suited for venture capital or for a bank loan. Within our ecosystem, we are in a position to make those introductions to those service providers. So we have about 100 companies that are currently in the ecosystem. We chatted with 300 over the last year. And then we have a little bit over or close to 300 advisors, right? And so what that means that these are these individuals that are serving as advisors to those companies. Our revenue model is twofold. One is the matching, which I was just describing, where we're matching individuals with mentors and advisors. But our primary source of revenue, and we are revenue generating as a firm, is actually through the equity crowdfunding component. If you look to the right, we are one of the 60 approved FINRA SEC portals. That means that we're allowed to engage in equity crowdfunding. And then our business model is that we charge 7% on the dollar amount that's raised. So for example, if a company comes to us and they raise $100,000, we typically charge 5 to 7%, meaning 5% in cash. The other 2% of that raise amount, the other $2,000, would be in the form of equity. So we are long-term partners with the companies that we help launch. And it also feeds into the advisory piece. From an advisory perspective, when brokering those relationships, we take a fee as well if compensation is given. So for example, if you're a startup founder, you come to Seed at the Table, you may or may not want to engage in equity crowdfunding, but you're saying, hey, you know what? I want access to a mentor or to an advisor that can help me think through financials, logistics, and marketing. I want to extend equity of $10,000. Seed then takes 1/4 of that as a form of fee for brokering that relationship. I mentioned the history. We're focused on diverse founders. We had success. This needs to be updated a bit, where we've raised over $2 million over the last 2 years, or really 18 months, on behalf of 10 companies. The largest was a company called Row House Publishing, where they raised about $700,000. We've had companies that have gone on to be Techstars companies. We have 2 Black women that have launched with us as well that have gone on to raise over $1 million. For perspective for the audience, there have only been 150 Black women to have ever raised over over $1 million. So we're very proud of that success. We've had founders launch with us that have been prison impacted, meaning that they were incarcerated at one point, which makes it very challenging to get access to a bank loan or to navigate through the traditional credit markets, equity markets, and so forth. So tremendous success. As I mentioned, we raised over $2 million over the last 2 years. For the next 6 to 8 months, we're teeing up 10 companies and we're looking to raise at least $3 million. We had hoped to enhance our ecosystem by 1,000 new users. We have 3,000 users in the ecosystem now. These are investors, advisors, and representatives of companies. And then we also want to enhance our matching technology, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I have an amazing team, and they are listed right here below. You see myself, one of the co-founders as head of growth. Susan Sweeney, she was a banker at Morgan Stanley and at Barclays in terms of compliance law. She heads up all of our legal interactions. We interface with FINRA on a regular basis, as you can imagine. Emin Otuba runs our technology. He is a past entrepreneur himself with an exit. Darius Broadwater has been in the business of marketing for the past 20 years. He heads up all of our client engagement and marketing activities. Morgan Means is head of issuer marketing. And what that looks like is when companies come to seed, they need help in actually raising, their campaign itself. So she's providing marketing services specifically around the campaign. And then lastly, we have Shaquinta Prince, who's head of onboarding, meaning that whether if you're a company that's trying to launch with us, if you're an investor that's trying to invest in the companies that are launched, if you're potentially an advisor that wants to get involved and be a mentor to some of these companies, you would typically interface with Shaquinta. Here are some of the amazing firms that are represented by leadership. We were intentional about leadership, given that we understand that the demo that we cover has some unique challenges, requires a different set of patience that our competitors are in a position to provide. So we were intentional about making sure that we have people that are highly successful in their prior careers and have either had entrepreneur experiences as well. These are some of the dire stats. I gave you a few, but dire and I would say actually promising though. Promising in the sense that 18% of all businesses are minority owned. As I mentioned, it says Black founders are 2 times more likely to be rejected by a loan. For a loan, it's actually 3 times now. Black businesses fell, 8 out of 10 Black businesses fell within the first 18 months due to a lack of funding, right? And lastly, startup founders with a female founder tend to perform better. So we quickly realized like, hey, there's a gap as it pertains to capital. Black and brown founders particularly need a little bit more help or better pathways to capital. When they do get capital, they're able to better perform. One thing to keep in mind is that this is something I talked to a bunch of founders about, is that there are typically 4 pathways to capital. And this may really set the context. First is leveraging your own balance sheet or exhausting your own balance sheet, your savings, 401k, and so forth. Second is to go to friends and family if you have a robust and or wealthy friends and family network. Third is to actually go to a bank and try to get a line of credit. The challenge with a bank is that typically in order to raise capital, or in order to get a loan, you need to have collateral or assets. So many of the products or the businesses that you engage may not actually own the space that they're operating in. So they have no collateral to actually back the loan itself. And then 4 is venture. And as I mentioned, that's, we're only 1% of that market. Here are a couple of our amazing founders and team. We're in the business of really connecting diverse entrepreneurs to both accredited and non-accredited investors. For those not familiar with with equity crowdfunding, it's both equity and debt. So we now try to commonly refer to it as community crowdfunding. And as I mentioned, the other differentiating factor is our ecosystem. Once again, that's highly successful individuals that are advisors and resources to those that are looking to raise capital. I won't walk you through the timeline, but one thing to note, when Obama signed the Jobs Act in 2012, the max that a company could raise was actually $1 million through equity crowdfunding. It is now up to $5 million. When we started 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, there were 30 portals. Now there are about 60. And once again, we are the only portal focused on this demo, and the only Black portal that's focused on this demo, of course. Huge market opportunity. The industry is new within itself. If you think about the raise amounts, they tend to increase. U.S. community crowdfunding is a $5 billion market. Small businesses is a $613 billion market. They are underserved by the banking community, as I mentioned. They are underserved by the venture community, as I mentioned. So that provides ample opportunity for an ecosystem or fintech company like Seed at the Table to really ride that wave of a changing demographic, a demographic change in terms of founders, right? Founders of color, new individuals coming into wealth, and are trying to test the waters as it pertains to entrepreneurship, I should say. Kind of 4 key offerings: community crowdfunding, that's equity crowdfunding; the advisor matching. We provide resources in terms of education as well. So we provide educational content. For example, we have a series coming out in terms of how to actually get into the Airbnb business. We had a video that popped up recently about how to get into angel investing. We have educational content about trust and estate planning, and so forth. And then we have partnerships with service providers. One is an entity called Nova, which is basically this machine AI that helps founders or entrepreneurs really validate their business model through digital marketing. So Nova can forecast revenue growth or lead generation with a fair amount of accuracy. And when companies come to partner with Seed or to list with Seed, we're able to get them access to that machine AI, given our partnership with Power Digital. How it works, and I invite all of you to participate in this process, is that there's a survey for both investors, and there's a survey for investors, there's a survey for companies, and there's a survey for service providers. So what ends up happening from a matching perspective, a company will come in, complete the survey, and it will list how much they're doing in revenue, whether they have debt, what their industry is, whether they need help in technology, what their tech stack may be. So we really do profile the companies. We do the same thing for individuals that are either investors and or potentially advisors. Level of education, income, have they been angel investors before? What are the areas that they're most interested in? And then lastly, we're getting ready to roll out one for service providers. So for example, if you think about the accounting firm or the law firm, we'll profile them, and then they'll be in a position to be matched with companies that are in need as well. The investor process, which many of you may be familiar with. Typically, you would go for the companies that are launched, that are public, that are not in the testing the water phase. We have actually a number of companies we have more companies in the testing the water phase than we have listed now. You would go to the platform, seedathetable.com or any other platform. You would identify which product you wanted to invest in. So whether if it's an equity product, a debt product, and so forth. And then lastly, you would actually, this is for the company that's issuing, that's trying to raise capital, I should say. And then lastly, you would actually list the company publicly. But before that, as mentioned, you can do it privately. So with the Test the Waters campaign, for those that may not be as familiar, I know we talked about it briefly, you have the ability as a founder or an entrepreneur to really just gauge your audience in terms of their appetite for investing before actually listing it on the website for others to invest who may not already be familiar with your network or your product. So we have tons of companies that are in the testing the water phase now. And then lastly, as I mentioned, you go about executing your raise, listing it publicly, filing the documentation with the SEC and FINRA. So what's important is many individuals have and will continue to raise capital in a kind of handshake manner, with equity crowdfunding being backed and constantly monitored by the SEC and FINRA. It provides for transparency, meaning that you as an investor, you know exactly what you're investing in, you know the terms of the investment, it is publicly available, you know the backgrounds of the founders, given the background checks that take place. And the reality is you're in constant communication with the founders because they are communicating as a requirement per the SEC and FINRA. The reverse is if you're an individual and you have discretionary income, there are limits in terms of what you can invest based on your income number. But if you have discretionary income and you're looking to invest, you would join the family. You would select the type of investment that you wanted to invest in, whether it be a debt note or whether it be a real estate offering or a food offering. And then you would create a portfolio, which we track for you, of investments as well. This is the competitive landscape. I can't see the chat now, but I know when we first started, there were a couple of entries or comments about competitors or companies that are out there. Many of you may be familiar with Republic, WeFunder, Start Engine, Seed Invest was actually just acquired. So we're in the upper right. We're meaning that we cover a variety of industries and we're friends and family, meaning that we have more of a friends and family appreciation for capital and a friends and family approach. The other competitors that are out there tend to operate in a one-time transaction model, meaning that I'm company X, Y, and Z. I want to raise $100,000 or $1 million. I list on Republic. Republic may often require that I do that I already have a certain revenue number that I'm performing on per month. So they may say, hey, in order to raise with us, you need to be generating $50,000 in revenue, which could be a challenge for many businesses. But if I were awarded the opportunity to launch a Republic or WeFunder, I raise my $100,000 or $1 million, Republic or WeFunder would charge 7%. I would pay them $70,000. And then we shake hands and we say good luck. Whereas with Seed at the Table, same process for 100,000 or $1 million. In this instance, you would pay $5,000 on 100,000 in revenue in cash. The other 2,000 would be in the form of that same investment vehicle, whether it be a safe note or convertible note that you've extended to the public. And then we continue to be long-term partners and investors because we concurrently are providing you with the option to have either official, meaning that that individual is on the cap table, you've exchanged equity or you've exchanged compensation for it, or unofficial mentors that support the business long after the transaction occurs. Two amazing founders. As I mentioned, we've had two Black women that have gone on to raise over $1 million. They're two of the 150 that have gone on to raise over $1 million. One is Rebecca Baruchi. Her company is called Row House Publishing. And what they do is they've actually disrupted the publishing industry by telling stories of individuals that you're not likely to see in market. So whether they be Black, Brown, LGBTQ, those from marginalized communities that typically don't get airways or at least print ways, I should say, that don't get the opportunity to be printed in mainstream publishing. She's been one of our first partners. And as I mentioned, she raised $700,000 with us and then went on to raise over $1 million thereafter. Ish and Donald are two of the founders of Piggyback. So if you think about Uber for kids in terms of if you're a soccer dad or mom and you're taking your kids to practice and there are other kids that want to go as well, what Ish and Donald do with Piggyback is that they coordinate those rides, provide the background checks allow for parents to feel at ease when their kids go off. And they raised $200,000 with us. Here are just two notes from two of our investors. I had a call this morning and something was actually mentioned to me that I really rarely reflect on is the fact that many of our investors in this 3,000 user ecosystem are actually first-time investors, right? I think that, in this audience, many of you are used to investors because you're logged and you're used to being investors because you're logged into this call. But many in our community, regardless of their credentials, these are people that have worked at amazing firms, right? Have gone to amazing schools, but still the venture process is very new to them. So they appreciate the opportunity to invest and have access to amazing companies like We Are Oya that was mentioned in the deck, as well as companies that they may consume on a regular basis that may not be VC ready, right? And so whether it's the coffee shop down the street, whether if it's your favorite barbershop, hair salon, whatever the case may be, those entrepreneurs are able to raise capital, once again, equity or debt through Seed at the Table. And that wasn't always available to them 10 years prior. And even now, given the competitors or the providers that are out there right now, not many are focused on our demo, if any at all. As I mentioned, our business model, we charge 5 to 7%. Just a quick math example on a $200,000 raise. When we think about the matching process, we've been matching for the last year. We haven't assigned revenue to it yet, but we envision 25% of the compensation. Well, we would take 25% of the compensation that is issued in the form of revenue. Our numbers speak for themselves. When this was created, there were 2,500 members in our ecosystem. Now we're 3,000. We have 1,200 active investors. There were 8 successful campaigns in 2022, and 2 of them have gone on to Techstars, right? So when you think about the caliber of companies that comes to Seed at the Table, it really does range from the small business that is fine, working in perpetuity, driving revenue, and then issuing a convertible note or a debt note and borrowing from you and paying you back. We have companies that are very tech heavy, patent approved, that are going to go on to venture capital and do great things like We Are Oya, and then we have everything in between. So we're proud of the companies that we've helped launch. We've been featured in Earn Your Leisure, Forbes, Fast Company, and Afrotech. Forecasted growth, so we're revenue generating. So last year, in 2022, we did about 80,000. We're on pace to do about 150,000. The goal is in 2027 to do 2 million, and that's just pure cash. It doesn't take into consideration the equity, and/or this number doesn't incorporate any of the matching or a compensation for the matching component either. You know, our CAGR is 206%. The negative profitability is a function of us taking proceeds and investing dramatically or drastically into marketing. Right now, our margins without, you know, without the marketing investment our margins are very healthy. We're about 30% margins, given that with the license, the FINRA and the SEC license, that's the IP, and that's really what we're monetizing, right? It's like literally brokering capital. And so there isn't much from a use of proceeds perspective on our end in terms of actually helping those transactions take place. What we're really trying to do is raise capital so we can continue to find new companies to list with us, and we continue to find more issuers to invest and more individuals to serve as mentors. And I know there are questions that are popping up. I'll get to them once we work through this. I gave you these are just kind of how we got to those numbers in terms of the 843 EBITDA. If you get the last column, we did 1.3 million in terms of raise of help, $1.3 million in terms of raised on behalf of companies. We're looking to do 3 million in 2023. By 2027, we want to be about 40 million. We're going to raise $40 million, right? And that gets us to our operating expenses is 1.2 on that. Our revenue is 2 million on that, and that gets us to the 843 in terms of profitability. As you can see, the marketing number is the second to the bottom number, or the second to the bottom row. That's a big bulk of our investment. There's some awesome investments as it pertains to headcount and legal, which we'll get into in a bit. Milestones: we were approved by FINRA in 2021. We were awarded, we were one of 25 companies out, I think, 6,000 applicants, where we were awarded both capital and credits from Amazon. So a very prestigious accelerator that we went through, learned a lot in terms of how to scale the business. We raised, like as I mentioned, raised over $1 million in 2022. That's when we hit that, when we flipped that switch, and now we're, you know, well over 2 million. In the future, what we're trying to do is roll out the app for our ecosystem. As mentioned, launch at least 10 to 15 companies in 2023. We want to have more partnerships with bulge bracket banks, given that the way they view us is a readily available depositor base. So the 3,000 individuals that come to the portal, hopefully 4,000 by the end of the year, are actually people that need to actually deposit their cash as well. They're transacting, they're investing in startups and so forth. So we want to have more partnerships with bulge bracket investment banks or bulge bracket banks and insurance providers in terms of thinking through products that can be helpful to our companies that are listing with us as well. Our board, some heavy hitters: Jacqueline Grace, Black woman, who's the CEO of Beam; Mark Wilson, who's the president of Chime Solutions. If any of you are based in Atlanta area, Mark had an exit, a significant exit, actually 2 exits already. They continue to partner with us in terms of helping us think about best ways to scale the business. Funding terms: this deck is more so oriented towards the venture community, where we're looking to raise $3 million on a $10 million valuation, safe note, and the minimum ticket size is 50,000. Once again, this is for our institutional partners. The use of proceeds, 40% is towards personnel, more full-time hires, also 40% towards marketing and sales. So that's kind of the advertising and the partnerships piece. 10% towards app development, and another 10% for legal, given that we're constantly interfacing with FINRA and the SEC. You know, we're making sure that we're good stewards of capital on behalf of companies that are raising with us and for you all as investors. Success factors are what makes us successful is that, yeah, we have a strong team with a strong finance background. You know, we're uniquely positioned and focused on diverse founders, knowing that that's the quickest and most meaningful growing demo. We provide white glove service, especially when you think about the matching component. We have a strong network of both founders, but also partners and advisors. You know, we do a lot of heavy lifting as it pertains to the legal, navigating the legal process. in terms of filing your Form C and everything that's required to actually raising capital from an equity crowdfunding perspective. And lastly, we get a high quality deal flow in terms of the types of clients, the types of companies that come and partner with us. These are companies that have been vetted through our process, that come from the network. And as I mentioned, some are doing $5 million in revenue, and some are doing $200,000 in revenue, right? And so we provide optionality in terms of the types of companies that you can invest in as well. Please get in touch with us. You can find us at seatathetable.com. As mentioned, we are currently testing the waters. And the purpose of that is that we continue to engage the venture community and the family office community as well. So just for perspective, we did a pre-seed raise 18 months ago. We raised a little bit under $700,000. Notable investors are Baron Davis, for any of those that are basketball fans. Anthony Tolliver, also a past basketball player as well. And the rest were 32 Black and brown, once again, entrepreneurs, bankers, attorneys, and so forth, who actually made up the bulk of our family members, right? And so they said, hey, not only do I want to raise not only do I want to commit capital to seat at the table, but I also want to commit my time as being an advisor. So given that we're in the process, given that our mission is about providing access to founders for capital, but also providing everyday Americans access to invest in high quality deal flow, we wanted to make sure with this test the water phase that we carved out a piece of this investment for the community to participate in. So a large bulk of it will actually continue to come, and we already have commitments, will continue to come from the venture capital and the family office community. But we were very intentional, in addition to our intentionality about diversity, but we were very intentional about making space on our cap table for the community. And that's it. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I'll stop sharing at this point, and I'll answer any questions verbally, and I'll get into some of the stuff in the Q&A too.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll read the Q&As to you. First of all, thank you. That was awesome. You laid out very nicely for the community all the things that they needed to know about the behind the scenes, because we have, been a big supporter of Seat at the Table. I mean, we've had companies. The Cut Buddy, I think, was yours. Macro Bites was yours. Chewbox, Honor Your Flow. We also had Ish and Donald. They actually have been here twice.
Good, they're good guys.
They're great guys. They've actually submerged themselves into our community as well, and so they're part of the family. So we are very familiar with what you guys are doing from that side. So hearing all of the back end stuff is really, really nice. The community members have put some questions in the Q&A.
Sure.
I'm going to read those to you. So Latoya says, what is the criteria to become an advisor, partner, or investor on the platform?
Yeah, so for the advisor piece, what ends up happening is that, so anybody and everybody, I encourage you all to fill out the individual survey. It'll just profile, once again, your experience, your interest in terms of, industries, whether you invested as well in the past. And so by doing that, you say, hey, seat at the table, this is my information. I'm willing to be considered as an advisor, right? The option is to the We Are Oyas, the Macro Bites, the Honor Your Flows, for them to actually select who they want. So our machine AI, our formula will say, hey, company XYZ needs help in growth marketing and finance. What we'll do, and they're based in Philadelphia, right? And so what we'll do is we'll look at and we'll see which advisors have overlap in the Northeast, right? And also have a skill set that leans into those needs. It'll populate 3 to 5. We'll present that to the company, Honor Your Flow. And then that company or that founder would be able to pick through those profiles and say, hey, I would like to have a call with this person, or would like to have a call for that person. So that's on the advisor piece. As an investor, it is open to anybody. As I mentioned, there are limits in terms of the amount that you can invest. If you are a non-accredited investor, I think it's like 10%. And it's listed in our risk disclosures of your net worth. We have a calculator that outlines that for you. Accredited investors are definitely welcome to invest. We have tons of accredited investors, not only within our family, but that are actually users of the portal, invest in the companies that we list. The third was how to be listed as a company. So what ends up happening, same process. You'll fill out a survey. And we did that, like I said, we were mindful of the fact that everybody may not be a fit for community crowdfunding. You may be a fit for donation-based. You may need a line of credit. So we want to have a better understanding of your profile. So the survey outlines your business, industry, location, your expertise, and so forth. And then we take that profile, Shaquinta then reviews it, right? Provide the human element to it. And then we start pinpointing resources that can be helpful to you, whether on the advisory piece and/or in terms of just, hey, you may need help with your tech stack, or you may need an introduction to Amazon or Google and so forth. And then lastly, and most importantly, if you're interested in community crowdfunding, then you'll continue to engage with Shaquinta to actually being listed on the portal itself. And from that perspective, just so we're clear, to be listed for community crowdfunding, we at Seat at the Table, we're revenue stage agnostic, unlike our competitors, right? So you can be zero as it pertains to revenue, just an idea formation or just establishing product market fit. And we are industry agnostic, meaning that we don't have a heavy tech bent like our competitors as well. You can be D2C, e-com, B2B. We're just trying to find the right people to onboard from an issue perspective. And once again, our goal is to say like, hey, for whatever reason, if you decide that it's not the right time for community crowdfunding, that we can continue to provide more resources to you.
Very good. So Pierre, I've got a question. I noticed you said that your testing the water campaigns are not listed, right, as active campaigns.
Sure.
What can we do at 10K Project to help those campaigns? Because as I stated, we actually enjoy being part of the test the waters phases, right? And once that Form C is filed, being able to be the first investors, because we know that that is one of the challenge stage for so many of our founders who are doing amazing things. How can we support them on your platform?
I think, a testament to what we're doing at Seat at the Table is just really our interaction, right? The fact that, I saw what you were doing. And I recognize that there are many companies in need that can help expedite or amplify their raise with us, or even if they're not working with us, right? And so we wanted to make those introductions. So we'll continue to do that and to provide your network to our network, right? Also, what you can do is that if you do have companies that either have reached out to, this is for individuals on the call, that have reached out to you and said, hey, they're thinking about raising, whether if they're already in the process or they're just considering it, introduce Seat at the Table. We'll love to get them a profile, have them surveyed up, and allow them to test the waters. And then you as an investor can really help carry the flag on their behalf too, right? And so, we ask of you only what we're doing on our end, right, is to continue to advocate and share all the good stuff that we're doing. Wonderful.
Charles said, can seed be used to raise money for a company to purchase a franchise?
Yes. So a couple of things. One is that this is not directly related, but I want to make sure that I'm not too narrow in terms of the types of companies that launch with seed. So definitely you have your water bottle manufacturers, your barbershops, your restaurants, your cool kind of products and tech apps. We've done it for real estate as well. We've had a successful real estate listing that's taking place. I just got back from South by Southwest. I was on a panel on Sunday or Saturday, and it was about like the creator community. Community crowdfunding can be used for movies, film, or TV, film, for music as well, right? Helping entrepreneurs or creators monetize their projects. Also, in terms of if you're an individual and you have a franchise and you're thinking about acquiring other franchises, right? You can set up an entity which will allow for it. And that's the beauty of it, right? Because the reality is if somebody reaches out to me and say, hey, Pierre, I want to buy another Subway or whatever the case may be, it costs $500,000 or $1 million. Let's do it between us. I probably don't have it, but the reality is we can aggregate a group of 20 or 100 individuals, and they may want to participate, right? And that they don't have to carry the entire burden. So yes, I think you said his name was Charles. You can do it to purchase other franchise.
Wonderful. Latoya said, what roadblocks or challenges did the business face when setting up your model? She's got a couple of other questions, but we'll start with that one.
Yeah, it's really just acquiring. So there's intellectual property or IP or commercial IP, better stated, in the license from FINRA and the SEC itself. It is an expensive, arduous, daunting, exhausting process to get that FINRA and the SEC license, right? Because that's what allows you to facilitate transaction, to get paid for doing so, and requires you to constantly be engaged with the SEC and FINRA to be even more thoughtful and just mindful of your words, right? And so I would say that is probably the biggest and still kind of persistent hurdle that we face. Second to that is continuing to find amazing entrepreneurs and founders. The challenge is with founders and entrepreneurs, and I get it, they all believe in their business and they should. And they see that $5 million can be raised and they want $5 million. So they hear that, Bank of America gave all these diverse VC funds, capital, and they're calling the VC funds and they're saying, hey, give me some money, right? And so like managing the expectations of the founders in terms of the route that they want to go. Everybody thinks that they have a VC ready idea, and bless them, let them think that, and or the dollar amounts that they want to raise. And as I mentioned, I think you just got to let it settle in that there have only been 150 Black women ever in time to raise over $1 million, right? And so I think that to answer the question is level setting expectations. When we talk to entrepreneurs, they say, hey, I need $3 million. And we're saying, okay, we understand that, but maybe we try for 200,000 first or 250 first, right? And the average for perspective per the SEC is about $200,000 per raise. But why don't we try for 200,000, allow you to unlock that inventory that you may have, or establish product market fit, make a couple of purchases, manage headcount, whatever the case may be. And then we can always scale up. You can always scale up to $5 million, but let's try to figure out and get that immediate number first so that you can grow the business.
Yeah, we experience that too with the founders that I'm talking to, and we talk for the ones that I'm referring to you oftentimes. Yeah. They are not clear on what they really need, right? So that's always my question is, what do you need to get to the next? Not what you want, because those are two completely different things. But what do you need to get all the things done? And then oftentimes when they actually take that time to do that exercise, they realize, well, I really only I could probably get this done with 200,000. And the thing about our community is we've gotten a lot done on shoestring budgets. So we know how to get it done, right? Very rarely do we need the $1 million. And so, it's really about, really honing in on that. We do have founders who do need it. And for the ones that do need it, I've got a founder, I think I sent him over to you. He's got this amazing ladder idea. He needs $1 million because in order to manufacture them, that's how much he needs, right? So he was very, very clear, but that's not always the case.
It is, and it's hard, man. It feels like it's impossible. And I always shake a hand or recognize an individual that's raised any dollar amount. It can be $50,000 that you raise or $5 million. It could be $50,000 of revenue that you created or $5 million. And the reality of it, and I approach every day humbly with this in mind, is that that's $50,000 or $5 million of somebody else's money that they could have directed anywhere else, right? And so even with Seat at the Table, the companies that were willing to partner with us and give us the opportunity, we recognize that they could have given their business to anybody else, right? And they made an intentional choice from their end to partner with Seed, understanding our value proposition, right? And it's worked out wonderfully because we continue to be great partners to them well after that transaction. But yeah, it's just, I think I said, it's managing expectations and, the ability to have a sense of patience, right? Because the reality is too, if you approach some of the competitors and you're saying, hey, I want to raise $5 million, and they're going to say, well, you don't have any revenue now.
Right.
There's no way, that's not going to happen. And there's no way we'll launch you anyways.
Right. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, when I do my search for founders, you have become the first place I look. So I go to Seed first, see what you got out there active, and reach out to anyone that you have before I go to any of the other portals, because we definitely want to intentionally support. And it's because I love what you guys are doing. I absolutely love it. LaToya's second question was, how did the company and founders overcome those roadblocks that you mentioned? Yeah,
so my first hire / co-founder is Susan, right? So she worked in legal and compliance at Barclays. So she gets it. She's an attorney by background. She was very instrumental in terms of, serving as just a good partner in terms of me. I'm not an attorney by background. I'm a banker, right? And so, and then, having been blessed and had the ability to raise capital, that allowed us to hire good legal counsel as well, right? To navigate that process. That is a benefit, right? It's not a level playing field. Like the fact that, we were ahead of the game because we were able to have access to capital that allowed us to allocate towards good legal counsel, good technology as well, right? It's funny. I remember when I tried to start Seat at the Table, and there's this whole concept, it'll make sense. There's this concept that it's expensive being cheap, right? And so when I tried to start Seat at the Table, it was just my balance sheet. I was using lever one. I was using my balance sheet only. And I was trying to find the cheapest way to build a website, but the website had to be compliant with FINRA and the SEC. And, I went through 4 different developers, many late nights because I'm talking overseas. And it was just, it ended up costing me a ton of money, but I didn't raise capital at that point. So then once I raised capital, I was able to hire the right engineers. I was able to bring Edmund on board as the chief technology officer and so forth. And so we were benefiting in that capacity. So to answer the first question on the legal side, I just had really good people around me, being Susan. I had some capital to hire good attorneys to continue to navigate FINRA and the SEC. The other part was about, we continue just to try to find really good issuers as well. And that's by virtue of the network. So I was intentional about, so let's take a step back. When we did the raise for 600,000, it was actually in 2 tranches, meaning the first one was like 400,000. That was oversubscribed, meaning that we had more people that were looking to invest than I could accommodate at the time, because I wanted to be mindful of my cap table. I didn't want to take on more money than I needed and so forth. We did another raise 8 months thereafter, or we allowed people to contribute and invest 8 months thereafter. That too was oversubscribed. And so for us, but the beauty of it was that it was my network. It was a network of us, right? A derivative of my network, right? And so now I have people that are investors, are contributors, are partners, are advisors that are people that are just mission aligned that I enjoy talking to, right? Because every call is 30 minutes. And so if it's going to be a 30-minute call, I'd rather it be with somebody else. And so the reality is, by carving out and listening to WeFunder right now, we want to make sure that we are available to the community, right? And so it may not be as many one-on-one calls, but as many group calls to keep you all up to speed on what we're doing, given that you too are participants and are investors in Seed's growth journey.
Very good. And then Latoya's last question says, why did the founders choose this type of model aside from just to fill a gap?
I'm
not sure I understand that question either.
Well, I can probably give it a shot.
Give it a shot. Okay, Latoya, you can clarify if we miss it.
So candidly, I could have raised $600,000, $1 million among that network of advisors and say, hey, let's go create a fund, right? And we'll take that capital and we'll redeploy it across all the companies that we think make sense. But we thought there was more value in the license, given that not every company is going to be a fit for venture capital, right? They're going to be companies that need to do debt loans. They're, literally the hair care product company that you consume. They're not going to always be a VC company, right? My favorite example is Melvin and Monique and Mael. They never take on venture capital at all, right? They took on private equity capital, but they never took on venture capital, right? And so there are tons of great companies out there. And think about the beauty of being able to say, hey, I love the Mael product, and I was an investor 5 years ago. I invested my $1,000 or $500, and when they sold to P&G, I was able to participate. So we thought that there was tremendous value, and once again, opening up our table, allowing the community, all of you, to have a seat at the table and invest alongside of us. If I would have created a fund, you wouldn't have had that access. It would have just been my group of accredited investors that work at all these kind of fancy places that have these fancy degrees, right? And so we want to make sure that we open it to other people like that, but everybody else. I want to be in a position where my mom and dad, I'm first generation everything, my mom and dad can invest, right, in the products that they are consuming. So we were very intentional about that, and it's very important to us.
Very good. Dean said, what's your marketing strategy to reach founders?
We partner very closely with, so we are actually, there's so many misgivings about venture capital. We are actually a good friend and a good partner to the venture capital and accelerator community. The reason is, or the way that we are, is that they're inundated with requests for capital and they can't invest in everything. So what ends up happening is they'll hand those companies to us, right? And say, or at least they'll say, hey, give seat at the table consideration. Those companies will raise through us, couple $100,000, whatever they need to grow the business, establish product market fit, and then be represented to that venture capital firm, whether it be through our network or through the relationship that they've already had as well. So what was that the main part of the question? I want to make sure I covered everything else. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so from a marketing standpoint, you're getting those from the
incubators. So incubators, accelerators, but we really want to start running ads. The reason why you see WeFunder everywhere is because they raise a ton of money at the front, and like they're running paid, Google search, paid ads all the time, right? And so we want to knock on the doors and running LinkedIn ads as well. That's in our business plan, to run LinkedIn ads as well, to get in front of as many entrepreneurs as possible. And once again, the benefit is that, hey, you can either raise capital through us, which is great, right? Or we can be a resource to you in terms of service matching, mentor matching, and so forth as well. So it's not just equity crowdfunding or bust, it's equity crowdfunding plus other resources that are available to companies in our network.
Very good. Yvonne said, I heard you take 25% of the amount issued. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, that was probably unclear. So once again, Yvonne, thanks for that question and for allowing me to clear it up. So when a company raises through us, they raise equity crowdfunding. We'll say that they raise $100,000 or $1 million. For those companies that are leveraging us for equity crowdfunding using the FINRA license, we charge 5 to 7% of that raise amount. Meaning that for the company that raised $100,000, we would take $5,000 in cash, and would be $2,000 in that same safe note that you've invested in and everybody else invested in, because we are long-term partners. So the FINRA equity crowdfunding 5 to 7%, that's our first revenue stream. That is our performing revenue stream right now. We're revenue generating, right? The second opportunity for revenue, we haven't monetized it yet, is through matching, right? Where we're matching companies with advisors. And what typically happens when you sit on a board of a company, the company will issue you equity and will pay you for your time on the board, right? And in that instance, if that company is paying one of our advisors, our mentors, for their time in the form of equity or in the form of cash, then we at Seat at the Table, we take 1/4 of that payment for brokering that relationship. So hopefully it's clear. So it's two forms of revenue, one being through equity crowdfunding, 5 to 7% of the raise amount. The other ideally will be through the matching, where we're taking 1/4 of any compensation that's provided.
Very good. We've got a question from Ms. Patrice in the chat. I'm going to read this. So I think she's asking you, have you had any interaction or interface with downtown Crenshaw Rising in Los Angeles? And it looks like she's saying that she knows that downtown Crenshaw was interested in crowdfunding the community at one point. She was curious if you had any interactions with them.
Yeah, no.
Downtown Crenshaw, is that an organization in Los Angeles?
Yeah, no, I think I don't know if it was the deal on the mall in particular, but obviously there was the Baldwin Hills Mall, Crenshaw Mall, that was a big to do in terms of allowing the community to be involved, or the community wasn't involved enough. We weren't engaged or activated in any way, and no, in terms of we haven't had any explicit activity with the downtown, with any entity in terms of the downtown Crenshaw area. That said, we're open, we're happy to have conversations, but we haven't been approached by them at all.
Very good. Dylan said, how many companies in your ecosystem you think might start a crowdfunding campaign on your platform?
Yeah, we're targeting at least 10 for 2023. And that's where we're going to get the $3 million number, right? So you can kind of back into it. We'll say $300,000 on average, but we've had companies that have raised as little as 100,000. We have companies that have raised 800,000, right? So that's what gets to that number. We continue to grow the ecosystem. So our kind of bottom line target is 10 for this year. Very
good. Christine says, yes, DC had 40 acres and the mall campaign, now Liberty Ecosystem, and has a community land trust and properties in the Lamert area. Okay. Very good. Larry Mickens. Oh, so actually, Larry, I didn't realize you were here. I mentioned the ladder, the founder with the ladder. That's Larry. I didn't realize Larry was here with us. Larry said, you touched on part of my question as I was writing. You mentioned a couple of athletes, I guess that means, in your family of investors, but why aren't you targeting them more? Knowing the number that end up broke after their careers are over. That being said, with your education, experience, and connections, why doesn't your company and companies like yours target these professional leagues on getting access to these athletes, on investing their money in founders from the community? God knows they need guidance on ways to invest their money.
Yeah, I can speak to that in many ways. So funny, when I was at Goldman, I was instrumental in creating their sports entertainment group, sports entertainment banking group. I used to be a registered MBA agent as well. So I was licensed for a couple of years. One of my investors is actually associate general counsel from the NBA Players Association. So we have tons of connectivity to athletes. The reality is athletes and very rich Black and brown folks are overtapped, meaning that there are so many people that are asking of them for money and time. The ability to get in front of them, or the time it requires to get in front of them, is just not a great use of time. relative to people that literally walk the halls and walk the streets, that work at Google, that are, Black and brown, that are doing extremely well, that are looking for amazing companies to invest in, right? And so there's so much success and wealth in our community outside of ball players and actors. Welcome any intros. That said, we're talking to a couple folks, but for us, it's like, what's going to be the best use of our time, right, and our resources. And we're also very protective about making sure that we partner with people that are reasonable in their expectations in terms of their level of contribution, and that are reasonable in terms of what they're looking to get out of the relationship, right? So I actually I'd rather take capital from somebody I'd rather take an investment from somebody that's willing to be a mentor and an advisor to the companies that are being onboarded, because there's no benefit. I mean, there's benefit in terms of somebody just giving you $100,000, $1 million, but you also want more than the capital. You want the access to their network and to their relationship. So we try to be very discerning in terms of who we partner with. But with that said, welcome any intros, direct intros to athletes that you may have or entertainers. But we try to be calculated and discerning in terms of how we allocate our time as well, to make sure that it benefits the community more broadly.
Wonderful. Ronald says, do you do business in West Africa yet?
No, because the FINRA and the SEC license is only available to the United States. Funny enough, the UK and Europe, Africa more broadly, they have their own forms of crowdfunding. The reality is, like as mentioned, the SEC and FINRA are involved to ensure for transparency. They are the regulators. So no, we haven't done any business in West Africa yet.
Very good. Latoya said, do you or other founders take on mentees?
Yeah, so every company that comes through Seed that launches through Seed is a mentee. And it's I get to know every company that you mentioned. I know them extremely well, and we text late and we talk late often. But yeah, so in terms of the mentee, and then maybe I can understand it correctly. If you fill out a survey, I don't know if you're a mentee in terms of looking as an entrepreneur, or if you're a mentee looking for mentorship as an investor.
I think she said as an entrepreneur, so she clarified. She said, by my question, I mean companies that want to do what they're doing. So I think she means as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. So you would fill out the survey and you would say, this is my company, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm located. And then we would match you with an advisor, and we'll give you the opportunity to engage that advisor. And it's a mutual conversation, right? To engage in an official or unofficial capacity. Meaning that, if you're trying to scale your business and you want to talk to somebody that's worked at L'Oreal for 15 years, right? That can help you think through supply chain operations, we'll present that person to you. If she and you think that it's a good fit and you guys decide to engage, and maybe you allocate equity or some kind of compensation, then we would get compensated. If it's, hey, it was great chatting and we'll just touch base casually or however so often, then you guys are okay to do that too.
Very good. I think Jamila's question is very much like what you just answered about matching with the advisor. Yep. You answered that.
I think it's one thing I made a note to myself is that the reason why the matching component or the advisory component came about was, definitely to serve our entrepreneurs that are coming and trying to raise capital and grow their businesses. But we also realize that there are so many successful, diverse professionals that are out there that have worked in industry for 15 to 20 years. And for tons of reasons are not on the boards of these companies, of these products that we consume, right? And so what we wanted to do is give individuals like myself who have worked in banking, 15 years or whatever the case may be, to say, hey, sit on the board and are being advisors to this startup that launched with Seed, or that's a part of the Seed ecosystem. That startup went on to raise $1 million, $3 million, whatever the case may be. Then you're able to sit on the board of another company. We wanted to give those individuals a body of experiences serving on those boards so that they can position themselves for bigger brands later down the line, right? And so it's learning on both ends as well.
Very good. And other than filling out that form, right, saying you want to be an advisor, are there other requirements, Jamila is asking?
No, there isn't, right? So there's no education requirement. There's talent in all walks of life, right? There's no experience requirement. Once again, we're looking for keywords. When an entrepreneur says they have a need, we're looking for keywords that may fit that need, and then we provide that profile to that entrepreneur.
Very good. Very good. Any other questions for Pierre? While you guys are typing your final questions, I'll ask a question that I ask every founder. And my question is very simple. Why was it important to come to the 10K project?
And you're not only are you aggregating talent in terms of individuals that are raising capital or are showcasing their business, but you're aggregating talent in terms of investors. It's amazing that many if not all of you are dialing in on Mondays/Tuesdays to hear about amazing companies and to get up to speed and get up to market on what's out there, right? And so this is education within itself. It is a degree from the likes of Harvard or Princeton, whatever you may want to go to. I don't know, it doesn't matter, right? And so it's what we quickly realize is that you're adding tremendous value. You're educating the population. We too are interested and invested in educating our population, right? And then we're really just interested in providing a seat at the table, right, for entrepreneurs, for investors, for service providers, and to allow them to interface with individuals that they typically wouldn't be able to interface with. So kudos to you for everything you're doing. We thought it only made sense for us to partner. And like I said, we continue, even before I came on, we were sending you business, and we'll continue to do so after.
Yeah, ditto. Absolutely. Eddie said, hi, Pierre. It's a pleasure to meet you and appreciate the pipeline that Seed at the Table provides for us. Given the fact that we are partnering with you in generating funds for our ventures, are you planning to become a long-term safe haven for the disadvantaged, or are you planning an exit? Again, we are proud of you and the team.
Yeah, so the common question is like, you invest in a Black company, how long are they going to be a Black company?
Yeah.
Right.
I was waiting for somebody to ask.
So you should always ask for any company that comes on this portal, this platform, or that you're investing through Seed. What is the exit opportunity? Quote unquote, how do I get my money back? Do I get my money? Like, what does that look like? Right. And so obviously nothing is guaranteed. Be mindful of risk, read the risk metrics, read the risk disclaimers and so forth. But to go back to the question is, I'm operating on behalf of our investors, right? And they are trying to maximize their returns. Now, the beauty of it is that I am, once again, that's why I'm here today, is I'm intentional about having Black and brown investors, right? So my thought process in an ideal world would be to get sold to like a Greenwood bank, right? But the reality is, Eddie, there are only so many Greenwood banks that exist out there, right? And so there's push come to shove where you have this investor community and they're saying, okay, I appreciate the opportunity to invest in Seed, spend some years. I would love to, realize the investment. You don't realize the investment until somebody is able to transact, and or the operator went and bought the equity up, which is an option too, but kind of rare, right? So would love to get bought out by a Black bank, but there are only like 20 Black banks that exist, right? Which is a challenge. That's why we're underserved as a community as it is. Get bought out by a Black bank, or a company that has equal footing or equal emphasis on economic mobility for diverse founders, investors, and communities as well. But we're looking for buyers, right? And so the beauty of it is, our community makes up our cap table. We're intentional, making all the calls. The challenge, friend to friend, is that our community is overtapped, and I'm reaching out to them, and there are people that are not from our community that have taken interest and say, hey, I want to support, I want to get involved, right? And so, let it be known, I pester everybody you can think of. I'm a well-resourced and well-networked guy, and if they're not on the cap table, it's because they just decided that it wasn't a fit for them, right? And so I don't take it personally. I just say maybe they're just overtapped, or they're kind of working on other things. But would love to have a transaction with somebody that's equally yoked, or a company that's equally yoked, and or can continue to carry on the legacy.
Very good. Very, very good. You see that note from Miss Patrice in the chat?
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I see it. Thank you very much. Should be 90220. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's some other. I saw a competitor listed twice in the deck too, so we'll fix it both. Thank you very much.
Perfect. All right. Jamila said, let them support. We're do that. LOL, just not buy or own.
Yeah, and I got you. It's hard, man. There are only so many buyers that are out there, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm looking for the athletes, looking for the entertainers. I'm looking for the right company to buy. Like we're in market, right? And I think that's why this platform is important, because what ends up happening too is that oftentimes as entrepreneurs, or even in our day-to-day jobs, we're very quiet about what we're doing. right?
Mhm.
We don't like to overshare, but it's important for the community to know that you exist. So, continue, please tell your friends that we exist, in terms of, being investors through the portal, listing their companies through the portal, investing in us, if it makes sense for you through WeFunder. And just, continue to be advocates for us. We are advocates for the community. We're trying to do what's right. Like I said, we're looking for those entities and those individuals as well.
Yeah. So Tannen was another Black founder who has raised capital through I love the way you call it community crowdfunding. I like that. I've been trying to say investment crowdfunding, but actually I may steal your community crowdfunding. But Tannen said, why look for buyers? Why not try to IPO?
Well, with an IPO, you're still selling too, though, right? You're just selling to the public market. You're not selling. What we're doing, what you could think when you think of seat at the table or equity crowdfunding, that's like a mini IPO. You are literally selling parts of the business to the public. These are things that they're on our radar, but they're so far ahead. We're trying to get 40 companies to list with us, right? And so I can promise you, and anybody that's ever interacted with me will tell you the same, that I'm going to do what's best for the community first. And that's why we created Seat at the Table, right? Like, again, we are intentional about making space for marginalized communities. And also, so another thing you got to think about too, though, is like you said, why not go public? Just kind of food for thought, whether it be for seed or not. Many of the investors, if all of you invest and, you would love to, many of the investors who may be first-time investors, they would like to participate in that liquidity event, right? It's like, and that's a wealth generating opportunity for them. So then I'm held to the fact where it's like, okay, you wouldn't maintain a business or maintain ownership or, not sell, but then you also have this pool of investors, whether they come to the 10K project or they come through whatever the case may be, and you're trying to balance between the two, right? The difference with us is that we're going to make sure that this number is a big number in terms of the amount of individuals. Historically, the number of people that have been on investors in Black and brown companies when they were private is very small, and they don't really get to benefit when big transactions occur, right? But we are intentional about making sure that we're allowing the community to invest.
Very, very good. Very good. Jamila said, I understand, takes revenue to list. Your revenue comes from businesses listing on platform. You need businesses to list there, et cetera, et cetera. She said, I get it.
Yep.
And then Jesse said, Magic Johnson trying to buy NFL team Commanders for $5 billion. He could be worth a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, there's, I know of other individuals that are almost as well, actually just wealthy, right? And it's like, we're engaged with them. Once again, those individuals are over tapped times 1,000. So then it becomes a math formula in terms of, is it worth your time? Now it's free to send an email. So I'm definitely doing that, Jesse.
Right.
Yeah, but it's like, do you want to send 10,000 or do you want to, continue to follow and pester folks for it? It doesn't make much sense. I'm a big advocate. This is how Seed actually came up. Two examples or two sayings. One is that I'm a big advocate for leaning into people that lean into you, right? That demonstrate interest and really being good to them, right? As opposed to exerting yourself, trying to sell yourself to folks who may not be interested and convince them. The other was, when I started working in banking, I was kind of thinking through my next path. And a good friend said, quite candidly, she's like, you don't have to keep asking them for money, right? Like, you don't have to work in this capacity where you're stretching yourself. And, the example relevant to this community is like, here you are asking these VC guys and girls for money, and like, they don't have an appreciation for what your mission is, right? Or an appreciation for you as an individual. Go create something that's going to allow you to get money from another place, right? And so that Magic is not, he's not that person, but it's just, being mindful of how you use your time, right? Because we are all stretched thin. I have tons of mentees as it is. So there are people asking me for 30 minutes of time, and here I am asking other people for 30 minutes of time as well.
Very good. Very, very good. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Pierre. I'm going to give my final comments. If there are any final questions, please, now is the time to put them in the Q&A. And then, Pierre, I'll let you take us home with the last comment. Oh, Tannen said, do you believe the people have more wealth than celebrities and athletes? If so, should we only focus on the community? I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. Tannen, what are you trying to say? So if we believe that people have more wealth than celebrities and athletes, right? So we do know that there are other people who are richer than celebrity and athletes. That's factual. If so, should we only focus on the community?
I don't, you should,
I'm not sure what you're trying to say,
yeah,
Tanner.
well, I'll answer. You shouldn't only focus on just one of anything, right? And so, we're engaged with venture capital investors and family offices now. We're also engaged with the 10Ks of the world, right? We're listing on an equity pot. We're doing both concurrently. All of our eggs aren't in one basket, right? Meaning that, we're trying to diversify our exposure in a sense in terms of people that we engage with, right? And so I think that, yeah, continue to celebrate celebrities and entertainers and athletes, but there are definitely other pockets of wealth that exist, and it may actually be better capital because it's both dollars and insights as well, right? So I would rather have somebody that's on a board of like KKR, the black person or black or brown person that's on the board of KKR being an investor than a famous basketball player, right? Because they're on the board of Carlisle or KKR, like they can provide introductions to me, right? And they could be just as wealthy, candidly, as the athletes that you're referring to. So yeah, I just have a different perspective on it, but you can do both. You don't have to pick one.
Very good. Call to action, right? We know why we're here, right? This was nice to have this talk, right? We know we are here to serve a purpose. And so I want you guys to please consider investing in this opportunity. Do your due diligence. I always tell you that, right? Make that determination on your own if this fits in your portfolio, right? I am not a financial advisor. I do not play one in the daytime. And so you have to make that decision. But the thing that I am going to ask you to do is the thing I ask you to do every week. And I need you to do it, especially this week, is to share this campaign, right? Share the heck out of this campaign, because not only is Pierre and Seed at the table raising capital for themselves, right? But they have this platform that is going to support hundreds. I know he's trying to get to a certain number, right, this year and try to get to the 10 and all of that stuff. That's fine. But hundreds, thousands over the course of the next few years, founders will be able to realize their dreams and be able to implement the innovations and the amazing things that they've come up with because Seed is in business. And so this really is a pay it forward moment, right? Because we're going to hopefully invest in this company that is going to allow other companies to also be successful. And so in a lot of ways, right, this is more important, right, to share the heck out of this campaign link, because the other founders that come from this success are going to be plentiful. And so, we know why we're here is to invest in companies and to, intentionally build our portfolios with Black founders. That's the mission of 10K Project. That's why you all resonated with us. And that's why you show up and show out for us every single week. And so, I love what Seed is doing. You guys know, those of you who've been riding with us for a while, I talk about Seed all the time. I get excited when we have a Seed at the Table founder. And so it's only, I think it's only right that we put that same energy and happiness and excitement behind this particular campaign, because they're making it happen for so many others. And so with that, please post it on your social. We've put it in your chat throughout the evening. That's right, Lamont. That's right. Share it. That's it. Absolutely. We put the link in your chat. So Alicia just put it in again. Go ahead and post it on your socials. Call friends with it. Tell friends about it. Right now, there's, I think, one campaign active, but we hope some of those testing the waters that you have, come out of the testing the water phase and get out there and have active campaigns so that we can start investing in them. But this is from a personal standpoint, I believe you should go to Seed once a week and just see what's out there. I do. That's how I bring all the amazing deal flow to you guys. I go out there once a week and I say, what's new this week? And then I reach out. And so, I don't mind if you bypass me to go straight to Seed at the Table and see what they have out there for you to fit into your portfolio. But please consider investing, but definitely share the heck out of this campaign link. Pierre, do you want to add anything in closing?
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you for your time. You know, it's Tuesday evening. Some of you are on the East Coast. You know, I'm on the West Coast. Thank you to those that may have dependents, whether little ones or family members that they're taking care of. My kids are waiting on me in the next room. They're ready to eat. But more importantly, you know, we are committed to the community, literally creating a seat at the table as it pertains to seed capital, right? And so we will continue to keep that in mind. I think we have something really phenomenal with this matching ecosystem piece where we're providing services beyond the ability to raise capital. So we'd love to have all of you join us in our journey. Please check out our Test the Water listing. It's important that we have you there. You know, we're going to try our best to make sure that the community can invest. So we want to make sure that it makes sense as opposed to only going with our venture and family office investors. But that's really contingent upon how well you all get involved and you share the message. So the Test the Waters campaign is wefunder.com/seed.at.the.table. We're just taking indications. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at pierre@seed.at.the.table.com. Seed as in seed capital, pierre@seed.at.the.table.com, or and happy to help. And please, if you come and you visit, you know, fill out create an account, log in, fill out the survey. We'd love to have you all profiled too.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you. Go feed those babies.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you for hanging out with us. Good night.
Bye.